Okay, in alhamdulillah, wassalat, wassalam Allah, wa rasulullah. I want to welcome everybody here to our program that concerns the Muslim youth of this nation. I see we got a lot of people here too. It's held every Tuesday for the new shahadas. Every Tuesday at 7:30, we address issues that relate to the Muslim youth living in a non-Muslim society. And we have with us Brother Mohammed Ziedeh, who is an expert of sorts on issues that impact the Muslim youth. And so today he's going to be speaking about a very important topic. Yes, Sister Margaret. Walaikum salam. Yes, he is. A very special topic. And I encourage all of you to put your the show on TV for the kids. You know, go to channel Sunnahfollowers on YouTube. So that way the kids can sit there and listen and to what he has to say and really benefit. Okay, so with no further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Brother Mohammed Ziedeh. And inshallah, we can go ahead and begin today's topic.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I think we've been talking a lot about the kids, the couples, the husbands and wives, newlyweds. And I think last week we kind of touched up on just a little bit of building confidence within our youth, right? We talked about how our kids kind of lack a lot of confidence and a lot of to be a Muslim in a non-Muslim environment. There's always those challenges. They want to be like everybody, they want to be like everybody else. They want to talk like everybody else. They want to dress like everybody else. They want to act and walk and talk like everybody else. And one thing that I've always explained to the kids is, and I've always said this on this channel, is that, we're not like everybody else. We're built different, right? Again, if there's one thing that all the youth, if there's youth, anybody watching this, is that my motto is we're Muslims, we're built different. Just one of the things that I always tell the kids when I walk into the classrooms, I say, we're Muslims, we are what? And it's the best thing in the world when they say we're built different. Because we're not like that. We don't do everything. We don't, we have our limitations. We have that book, Subhanallah, that tells us exactly how to live, how to do, how to act, how to walk, how to talk, how to do business, how to deal with each other. And one of the things that I've always explained to the parents and to the youth is ask questions to your parents, right? And I always tell the parents, talk to your kids about where you're from, right? Let them know where you're from. Let them know, let them have some pride in what you've been through, the struggles as a parent has been, where you came from, where your grandparents came from. Let them know their history, right? Because one thing I noticed, and in dealing with people, and Muslims and non-Muslims, is that we have a tendency to kind of, as parents, kind of push the agenda of education, push the agenda of making money, push the agenda of all this other stuff, and we kind of forget that Islam is not on top, right? We kind of forget all that that aspect of religion and the deen, and not realizing that if they can read Quran, if they can understand the Quran, they won, right? They win. And I think we kind of, as parents, we kind of tend, and as my parents, we kind of tend to really focus on, I got to get my kid to be a doctor. I got to get my kid to be a lawyer. I got to get my kid to be, engineer. I got to be, he's got to make all that money. But we kind of push back on the other stuff. We kind of forget about the other stuff. So one of the things I've always explained to the parents is, talk to your kids about where you're from, right? They want to know these things. And, believe it or not, they really want to know. They really have a lot of questions. I noticed that even when dealing with clients on the outside with other people, one of the things that I've always asked them is, like, when they come in and I get their names, right? I get their chart and I see a name, and I'm like, what does your name mean? That's the meaning of your name, and they're just like, what are you talking about? Well, what does your name mean? Like, there's this significance to your name, right? Like, what does your name imply? What does it mean? And they don't know. They don't know what their names mean. And you ask a Muslim kid, hey, Muhammad, what's your name? I'm a prophet. My name is from the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Okay, but what does that mean, right? We name our children, from the Quran. We take names from the Quran. We take names that are Islamic. We take names, that mean something to them. But do our kids really know what their names mean? right? And so that's one of the things I've noticed is like on the non-Muslim side, they just name their kids whatever they name. They go, oh, I named my kid after a rock star that I used to listen to. I named my kid after a car that I always wanted to purchase. You know, I see these names and it's just wow. And when you ask them, what does that mean? What does that mean to you? What is it? What is that? Is it a strong name? Is it a weak name? Is it just a random name your mom came up, your dad came up with? What does that mean? And so explaining that aspect of their lives can really kind of build on that like confidence. Oh man, I'm named after a prophet. Okay, so now I have a standard in my head of okay, I'm named after a prophet. I have to act and walk and talk. Let me see what this prophet did. Right? Let me see Adam. Let me see what Prophet Adam, how he lived his life. Let me see, and you start to see the questions come arise in their brains. They start to think, okay, let me ask my mom and dad this about this. Let me ask my mom and dad about that. Um, and it's amazing to me what that parents, when I ask them, and when I'm dealing with eighth graders or ninth graders, and I ask the parents, have you ever like really talked to your kid about the name you gave them? Well, no. I mean, I figured they're going to Islamic school. They'll learn over there. Well, no. Have you sat down with your kid and told your kid, I named you this because, or do you just name your kid and then, inshallah, Allah will kind of guide them and they'll learn it'll take them a little bit longer to learn. And the parents just, they're always kind of confused on that question. Have you told your kid where you're from? Have you told your kid where your father's from, or your father and your mother are from, where your grandparents are from? I think that's kind of one of the things I've done with my father, before he passed, was I asked him a bunch of questions, but I was older, so I kind of knew the questions I wanted to ask so I can know where he was from. Because that wasn't something that we talked about, right? We didn't really talk about that kind of stuff. We always talked about school, work, how to make more money, how to buy a house, how to do certain things. And we never really talked about our history, right? Because our history really kind of defines who we are right now, right? And I always explain to people like whatever you're doing now, right now in your present, is going to impact you 5 years from now, right? And that's kind of what I explained to them about the internet, right? When you post something now and you post something that you don't want your mom to know, or you want your dad to know, but you post it, and then 5 years from now you're trying to apply for a job and they Google your name and they search your name. What you did 5 years ago, that post you made 5 years ago, is really going to impact you whether or not you get that job, right? Because things stay online forever. And so the same thing applies to our past, right? So when I talk to the kids about their past and I ask the kids, where's your mom and dad from? Well, they're from Lebanon, or they're from Syria, or they're from, okay, but where are they from? Where's your grandparents from? I think they're from, well, these are the questions, right? And I explain to the kids all the time. A lot of times your parents don't really know how to talk to you about these things because they're not used to it, because they weren't talked to about it when their parents were alive. So as kids, as youth, we have to sometimes go, or I say we as if I'm a youth, I tell them, you have to go to your parents and you have to start asking the questions. Just like I tell them, hey, go tell your dad to go play basketball with you. Well, my dad's tired. It doesn't matter if your dad's tired. Go tell your dad, hey, Pops, can we go play some basketball? Hey, Pops, can we go play some soccer? You have to sometimes make that initiation as a youth to your parents to make sure that you can find out the questions that you need to find out. You need to know where you came from, right? And that kind of all develops again with knowing your past, knowing your present to get ready for your future.
I have a question too about that. This is so interesting. One of the sisters here says, well, how do you handle a situation whereas the child is ashamed? The child's ashamed of where the family comes from. A lot of the Somalian parents say they have to deal with that because the kids tease them and tell them, oh, you're from a poor country. So how do you handle that if the child has been shamed about where they're
And it's amazing. I'm glad you said that, because shame is a big thing in all of our societies and all our cultures. I mean, people always say we're from third world countries, right? We're from those poor countries, but then how you define poor and rich, right? Because you can go to Somalia and they're living in huts, but they're the happiest people in the world compared to the people here who have these beautiful giant mansions who are miserable. All right, and I know I've spoken about this before, but like when I go to these homes and I go to these houses, these Muslim houses, and these Muslims who have these big, nice, huge, 4,000 square foot houses where my tiny house can, 5 of my tiny houses can fit in their houses. They feel like they're, oh well, I have all this money, I should be super happy. But they're not. They're miserable. And so if you're from Somalia, you take pride in Somalia. Somalia's got a lot of good stuff about it. Research your country. Look up what your country offers, right? Because if you think about where all the wars are happening, all of the battles are happening, they're happening over there in those countries. Why? Because we are the ones in South Africa, Middle East. We're the ones that got blessed with all that fortune underneath the ground, the oil, the gold, the diamonds. We have so much to be proud of, to be ashamed. Are you kidding me? Then you ask yourselves and you tell them, where did life start? Life started out there, out in that direction. You're never, and as a parent, if I was a Somalian parent, I would always make sure that I tell my kids all day long, you're black, you be proud of it. You're African American, you be proud of it. You're different. You're not like everybody else. You be proud of that. You be proud of your difference. Because if you're not really enforcing that pride on your kid as they're growing up, right, to take pride in their culture, in their heritage, in their bloodline, and being a Muslim, like, and that's the number one thing right there is being a Muslim. Like you got to be super proud that we can go to work, and after work, people on Fridays, of course, everybody has to go to a bar and drink, and they say, "Hey, Mohammed, you want to go out and drink?" No, man, I'm a Muslim. I don't drink. And as soon as you say that, man, you feel some sense of pride in you because you're not really, it's weird. I see these people who live paycheck to paycheck to paycheck, and they count their money and they say, "Oh, okay, well, I'm making, $1,500 this month. I can spend about, $300 on drinks tonight because, I got the rest of it for my bills." Like they're a slave to their weaknesses, whereas as Muslims, no, man, I'm good. I'm a Muslim. I don't do that. Right? We take pride, and to me, I always say, like, I don't care where you come from. I don't care if you're Ethiopian. I don't care if you're Palestinian. I don't care if you're South African. I don't care. Number one and first and foremost, you be proud to be a Muslim. That's where your pride comes from, man. You guys don't understand. Like when I talk to these kids, and as I get to talk to these kids little by little, day by day, week by week, I see their mindsets changing. Like, okay, yeah, you're right, man. We are different. We are built different. It's not just a word. It's not just a phrase. It's a way of life. We are built different. So if you're not proud of that, then you really got to get with somebody who's really passionate about being a Muslim, and let that positive energy feed off of you, right? Because that's kind of like where it all stems from. Like, and as parents, where I'm, like I said, I'm Palestinian, yes. Well, my parents, my mom, dad, all that kind of stuff. And I see the people, yeah, free Palestine, free Lebanon, free Syria, free all. Okay, but yeah, I get all that, and trust me, I'm all about that, like that lifestyle and everything. But first and foremost, we are Muslims. We have to take pride in our deen, in that we have the same book for 1400 years, and nobody's been able to match it, to smash it, to try to beat it. I mean, I've seen these Taiwan guys go up against these people that try to debate it, and you can't beat it. You can't beat a book that tells you how it's basically a lifestyle. You can't. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I thought you have another question.
Yes, yes. And on the other hand, what about the children who don't know where they're from, such as children that are orphaned and replaced in new families? You
Mhm.
know, how can we instill, confidence about who or what they are in them?
And I think that's where the community comes into play, right? Because it's a tough situation. You don't know where you're from. You're a foster kid. And trust me, I've worked in foster homes. I worked with foster homes, and I wish there would be like a billionaire Muslim that would open up just a foster home for kids that for all the wars that are happening with all these kids that are coming out parentless, and the foster care system here is terrible, and so I'm always against putting kids in them, but it's tough. It's a tough situation where you don't have a parent, you don't have somebody to really tell you where you're from. And I think, and in that sense of not knowing, I mean, there's always ways of kind of taking a DNA test, seeing where your heritage comes from, where your bloodline comes from. As you get older, of course, and if that's something you want to kind of like dive into, and take a DNA test and see where you originate from. But it's very, I really think it's very important for that to be kind of talked about in the house, right? If you do have both your parents, if you have one of your parents, if you have a grandparent, if you're with a cousin, or with an uncle or somebody, I really believe that knowing where you come from really makes a big impact on a person. It's not 110% that it's going to make or break you, but I really feel like if you have a little bit of knowledge of where you came from, where your parents came from, the struggles that your mom and dad went through. I think also with like my children's generation, the younger generation, I feel like those guys, because you're not struggling, because they don't have that same struggle that our parents had, that they're not really appreciative of what they have right now. So you have to explain to them, like, you don't understand. I have to work. I used to work 8 jobs, or I used to go to school, full time, and go to work and pay the bills and make sure that you have food on the table. And them not knowing that stuff, they won't be able to grasp the difficulties that you as a parent have to go through in order to really give them the life they have right now. And so going back to, like, as a foster kid, and I'm going back to it again and saying, doesn't really matter where you're from, but being prideful and proud of being a Muslim is first and foremost more important than anything else right there. Right. And if you really understand the book as much as you try to understand it, and you're not just a Muslim by name, because we see these guys. How many of you guys have seen the guy who calls himself a Muslim just by name, but you don't see any type of aspect of them really living like a Muslim? Right. One of the things I explain to the kids, because they always talk about, oh, I want to be one of those guys that does da'wah. Okay, well, you're not there yet. How else can you do da'wah? How else can you spread Islam, the knowledge of Islam? Right. And we always talk about the actions of us, right? Giving charity. One of the things that I've always explained to my own kids is, smiling. Smiling is a form of charity. Picking up something off the ground, throwing it in the trash, it's a form of charity. When you pick something up off the ground, and just I think it was like 2 weeks ago, I was picking up something off the office floor, and I threw it in the trash, and I saw 5 or 6 people walk past it and not pick it up. And I went and picked it up and I threw it in the trash, and they were like, finally somebody picked it up. Well, yeah, why wouldn't anybody pick it up? It's a piece of paper on the floor. Pick it up and throw it in the trash. And these little forms of Islamic charities, Islamic da'was, and it's my religion. I have to do these things, certain things, because that's what God tells us to do. And when you kind of express certain things to the non-Muslims about how we live, they start to ask themselves different questions. And I'll give you a good example of something that just happened actually yesterday. And I was just telling my daughter about it, where we play basketball, and one of the fathers came up to me and said, hey, listen, man, I have a question. I've seen you guys always playing basketball. You always coach your kids. You're always here with your daughter. I have a question for you, because I remember couple of seasons ago, she wasn't wearing hijab. She wasn't wearing a head covering, and now she's wearing a head covering. When did you push her to make this decision? And I was kind of like, what do you mean? I didn't force her to. She just woke up last year and said, I'm going to wear the hijab, and she's just started wearing it. And it dumbfounded him on how a 14-year-old, I think she's 14 or 13, one of those ages, can just pick up and say, I want to show that I'm a Muslim. And it wasn't anything that I was yelling or screaming or arguing, or her mom or anybody like that. It was her choice. It was her thing. And so the way I try to explain to him was, like, when you instill that sense of pride in your kids and in your family, and you talk to your children, you speak to the children, and you let them talk back, right? It's a back and forth conversation. They start to ask questions about what Islam is, what Muslims are, who we are, right? And we have a purpose. A lot of times I think that those people, they don't have really a purpose. Their purpose is chasing that dollar, chasing that money, but we have a purpose. We kind of acknowledge and know that we're here for a reason, and it's all temporary, right? We all know that sooner or later, we were just talking about, my wife and I were just talking, the older generation is going one by one. They're dying, slowly dying. Everybody, grandparents are dying now. Now parents are dying, and who's next, right? It goes down the line of who's next. So we know, we got to hustle. We got to get some hasanat. We got to get some good deeds. We got to do whatever we got to do to make sure that we get ourselves up in the jet, right? And that's kind of what we kind of been instilling in our own kids, and the kids. When I talk to the kids at the schools, like, you guys can realize, okay, you're young, right? Y'all think you're gonna live forever, but we don't know about the kid. That kid that just died the other day in a car accident, was 16 years old, didn't know he was gonna die. He didn't know he's going to get in a car crash and die. So you think you have a long time, but you don't know when it's not going to be, when you're done. So you have to fight now with your pride to make sure that your pride, you understand Islam. You do and live the way you got to live, the way we're told to live, and do it with a passion, right? Islam is like, man, it's awesome. Like we have everything told to us, and I think the kids don't really grasp that. Well, everything's haram situation, right? How many times have you heard that? Everything in Islam is haram. And then I explain to them, well, everything that's haram is bad for you. So we go over the stuff that they have complaints about. Why is this haram? Why is this haram? Why is this haram? So, and then I go little by little, one by one. Because if you go all together in one day, it's too much. I'm sorry, go ahead, Sister Laila. I think you have a question.
we have another sister here. She's asking, what if you have a child that understands their purpose in life and understands their religion, but they're afraid to speak up? She becomes shy when the other girls bully her about her religion. She's just afraid to speak up. Can you pull her out of that shell?
It's okay. So you're talking about a person who has confidence in themselves, acknowledging their deen, and pride about being a Muslim, but they're shy. To me, everybody's personality is different, right? When I'm getting bullied, or when I was getting bullied, I use sense of humor. I'm always laughing. I was make a joke, and I kind of put the joke back on them. When I do a bullying class, I do cyberbullying, and I do bullying classes with these kids. And I always, we always tell the kids that get bullied, hey, look, I'm sorry, we can't arrest all the bullies. That's not going to happen. And one of the things I tell the kids is how to really understand, they're bullies for a reason, right? There's something wrong with them on the inside. There's something wrong with them. Maybe they ain't got no love at home. There's a lot of issues at their own house. There's some stuff going on in their own house that's why they're kind of picking on people, right? And so one of the things I always tell the people that are getting bullied is learn how to really develop a thick skin on it. Number one, because they're not going to stop. Even in my line of work, as old as I am, as educated as I am, the people I work around, there's still going to be bullies. No matter where you go or what you do, there's always going to be a bully. There's always going to be somebody who's hating on you, and it's really sad to me that as old as I am, I still have to kind of make a joke when somebody makes fun of me for being a Muslim, or for my name being Mohammed, or for whatever the case may be. But I don't feel sad for me. I feel sad for those people because they're lost. And I think that's one of the things that you have to understand is, to be shy, to be quiet, to really kind of know how to take it and kind of just brush it off as if it's like nothing. And as you get older, as you get more confident in yourself, that's when you can start kind of really going back and forth on the conversation. Well, you have a problem with Muslims? What's your problem with Muslims? Please explain to me, why you got beef with Muslims. What's your problem with us? And when they start talking to you, that's how you perform a dialogue, right? You start a dialogue with people. Because I've had conversations with people who only know Muslims from what they see on TV, right? Or from what their parents see on TV, and what they hear on the social media, or whatever they're seeing. So they don't really have and even yesterday, that guy that spoke to me, the guy in my basketball team, the father, that was the first time he actually sat down with a Muslim and spoke and asked the questions. Because I let him ask all the questions he wanted to ask, because I wanted him to understand what he had wrong and what he said what he had right. And as a teenager, as a youth, I get it, man. Getting bullied, getting picked on, it's annoying, it's embarrassing, it's aggravating, but you got to learn how to really develop that thick skin to understand that no matter how old you get or where you go in your life, it's going to happen. But educating yourself, learning how to talk. Look, I've been in law enforcement for over 20 something years. Never had to lay my hands on anybody. Never had to flip anybody over when I was working in the jails. Never had to do any type of hands-on maneuvers with anybody in the jails and the prisons, because I was always able to talk my way down, de-escalate the situation. And that's kind of one of the things that I think really takes a lot of experience to get to. Sorry, Liv, do you have any more? Is there any more? I saw a question pop up
So,
on the screen.
yes, one of the imams here just typed, he said the problem that he sees is as an imam is that many of the parents themselves have no confidence in who they are and what they are. He said he recognizes that most of the children in his community that have problems is because of the parents. The parents themselves don't have direction. So, what should we do to address this?
And we always talk about the kids, blame the kids, blame the kids, but we also talk about parents a lot on this channel. And I think one of the things that our parents lack is, maybe if they're my age, or a little bit older than me, or maybe a little bit younger than me. I think we were growing up on that time where our parents were kind of pushing education, pushing money, pushing, job security, money, house, car. We were kind of getting pushed in these directions where we went to a Saturday school or Sunday school, Islamic schools on the weekends, and were we really paying attention? Probably not. Were we focusing on what the teachers were telling us? Probably not. And so we, as adults, I think we also lack the knowledge to explain to our kids how important it is to be a Muslim, right? And I think the way we can solve that problem within our own parents' paradigm is having, I know some of the masjids here, they have family nights. My biggest thing is, getting the parents to have, like, we always talk about buy-ins, right? How can we buy in the parents to come to the masjid to have a conversation with somebody, with an imam or with somebody like me who can kind of explain to the parents, this is how we talk to our kids. Your kids and my kids are possibly the same age. This is how we can kind of put our confidence back in ourselves to kind of brush it off on our kids. Let our kids see our confidence. A lot of times my wife will say, "Oh my God, your daughter's like you. She has confidence above her head. Now she starts driving and now she thinks she's like a drifter. She can drive all over the place." And I have to like, ooh, okay, calm it down a little bit. I get it, but it's like my level of confidence is brushed off on her. My level of confidence, I'm trying to brush it off on my son. If the parents don't have that, then the kids aren't going to get that. It's not something that you're born with. You got to teach your kid that, right? And a lot of times, I think the parents believe that they're going to just wake up one morning and be a good Muslim and they're going to be confident and they're going to know all about the Deen. Well, how are they going to know about the Deen if you're not really having a conversation about Deen? When you're having a family gathering, are you talking about Islam a little bit? Are you bringing up one or two, lessons of Islamic lessons in your gatherings? Because from what I understand, if you bring up one or two conversation, if you bring up a conversation about Islam, that gathering becomes, I guess, a more positive environment, and the kids are learning from that, right? And if you don't know, Google it. Don't be ashamed to like, hey, look, I don't know what this means, because a lot of times the kids will ask me questions, Islamic questions. They'll say, hey, hold on, man, let me talk to the imam first, and next week when I come back, I'll have the answer for you from the imam because I don't know. Right. And I think that's the other biggest thing is a lot of parents don't want to say, I don't know. They want to sound like they know everything. And I'm always, hey, listen, when it comes to the religion, I'm not going to mess around because I'm not going to mess myself up between myself and Allah. And let me go get the right answer. And if I don't like that answer, if I don't think it's right, or if I have a gray area, then I'm going to ask another imam that's local that I can kind of trust. Because I've done that before. I've gone to other imams close by and to see kind of what their take on it. And also, how can I answer the question the right way? Right? Because everybody's personality is different. Kids' our personalities are different. My son is different than my daughter. My daughter is way different than my son. And my daughter's date way different than my wife. Like we're all different in different aspects. But if the parents don't have that confidence, if the parents don't know how to answer that questions, then the kids are going to be lost. So then it becomes on the parents' responsibility to start going to the masjid, talking to the board members, talking to the imam. Hey, when's the family night? I really want to start bringing my kids here, and I really want to start asking some questions because I need to learn. Look, man, if you're my age, you got to start thinking, I need good deeds. I need to fix my life up now because Allah has given me all these years, and what have I done with it? Right. And I think one of the biggest questions, and I think I saw a question pop up, but before I get to the question, I think one of the questions I always ask the older kids, not the younger kids, I always ask the college level kids, is what do you want to be remembered as? And that's a pretty deep question, because a lot of kids don't really think that far ahead. If and it's something I do in my group counseling classes and my other stuff that I do. If something happens to you tomorrow, what are you going to be known for? What are you going to be remembered as? And they think about it. And I said, I always tell them, don't answer it right now. I'll see you in a couple of days. I want you to really just think, right? And as parents, I always ask parents, like, what do you want your kids to remember you as? How do you want your kids to remember you? Oh, my dad always worked, 24/7. I never really saw him. Well, did he pray? I probably saw him. I said, maybe saw him pray once in a while. Don't know if he prayed. Was he at the masjid? Sometimes he'd go to the masjid on Eid. Sometimes on Friday prayer he would go, but these are the things that you have to start to ask yourself as a parent. What do you want your kids to remember you as? Right? And if you can answer that question the way you want to answer that question, but can't live up to that standard, then really take a deep dive into yourself and really ask yourself, am I doing what I need to do in order for me to get to where I want to be at and want my kids to remember me as? And if you're not doing what you need to do, it's time to make some changes. Right. And a lot of times I always talk to the parents that when they complain about their kids or when having a family session, what you've been doing for the last 12 years, 10 years, however old this kid is, has not been working. Or for the last 2 years or for the last 3 years, has not been working. So now it's time to see how we can change what you've been doing and see how we can make it work. Same thing applies for how do you want to be remembered as? Do you want to be remembered as the guy who just came to the masjid on Fridays and called it a day? Came to the Eid and dressed in your Armani suit and you drive up in your nice Mercedes and wow, mashallah, everybody thought you were the richest guy in the world. How do you want to be remembered as? And how do you want your kids to remember you as? That's the deepest questions that you can kind of ask these parents. And if you can't really answer those questions, what kind of changes do you need to make? Who do you need to talk to in order to really figure out how to fix your life in order for you to be able to fix your kid's life? I'm sorry, I think I saw another question pop up.
Yeah, I have another one too. Another sister asked, what if as a parent, you see or recognize the deficiencies that you and your husband, are showing, you want to change it to better the confidence and the self-esteem of the child, but your husband doesn't see it. Or in other words, one spouse realizes that a change needs to be made, but the other doesn't. She said, how do we go about that?
That's a hard question, because that kind of stuff really requires a third party to be in there sometimes. Sometimes it takes another person from the outside to come in and say, look, I'm seeing what your wife is seeing. I've done this before where, I would kind of go into the house and see things that both parents didn't see, and call them out on it, because that's the way I do my thing. I always have a disclaimer when I come into somebody's house. I'm very real. I'm very honest, and I do everything strictly towards Islam. And sometimes you're not gonna like what I have to say. And if you're not gonna like what I have to say, I'm sorry, but it's the truth. And it's only out of love, because I love my Muslims. I need my Muslims to we have to succeed. It's like number one for me. Like, it's making our kids winners in this world, because I see how weak the other kids are. I see how weak the generation is, and I need our kids to be tough and humble and proud of themselves and confident in themselves. And that's how you become a success, right? That's how the next generation becomes successful. And I think if one parent sees something and another parent doesn't see it, I think you should have like a third person to come inside and kind of do their own assessment, right? I mean, I don't like to use that word because it becomes technical and it becomes like as if you got a problem in the house or something like that. But you have a third party coming in and assessing the situation, right? I've sat in homes and where the guy would tell me, "Oh, I'm doing everything for my family. I'm providing, and they have this, they have cars, they have everything." But then the parent would say, uh, the daughter would say something. Oh, he doesn't even show me no love. He doesn't show nothing. He's never here, or he's always busy, or whatever. And then the father would start breaking down, and like, tell her I love her. And she's like, that's the first time I ever heard him say that. And this girl's, 19, 20 years old. I never heard my dad say that before. And so it takes sometimes a third person, husband and wife, they've been with each other for so long, they kind of know each other, right? And it's you're just saying that. You're just gonna blame me. You're gonna say it's my fault. Whereas a third party will come in and say it's both of your faults, right? Because it always takes two people to make or break a relationship. Get a third person in there, let that person talk and assess and see what's going on. And then that person can be very neutral, right? You don't get a father involved, you don't get any family members involved, you don't get parents involved. I always tell newlywed couples, don't get parents involved, man. Like that's you get your dad involved, she's gonna get her dad involved. It becomes a fight, a dash. Get a third party involved that has no skin in the game. That's gonna tell you guys the truth, follow the religion, and be honest with you guys. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, she said, if not the family, then who should the third party be?
And
If
that's what I
not the
said. That's right.
parents.
So yeah, that's what I just said. Like, you don't want the parents. You want somebody who's going to be a third party. Maybe get an imam. Maybe get a person in the masjid that can be that person, right? And I always when I do home visits, a lot of times I go to the houses because that's where they're most comfortable, right? That's you want to get them in their comfort zone because that's when you're going to get most of the right conversations, the right answers. But a lot of times I'll take them to the masjid and let them, sit in a neutral environment, right, where we're all three of us are comfortable. And sometimes you have to have an imam there, and the imam can, because that's why I like Ibrahim with me because Sheikh Dermali kind of gets the Islamic stuff better than I can. But when you have a third person involved that has no skin in the game, is a neutral player, you're gonna get honest. I mean, as long as that person is honest, some really honest, good advice on how to really get your kids to be proud of themselves, right? And kind of also ask yourself, do you call your kids dumb all the time, stupid all the time? Is that something that they hear constantly coming out of your mouth as a parent? There's simple things that like we think it's just in passing, or it's just, I say it all the time, but it doesn't really mean anything. Well, maybe to you it doesn't mean something, but to that kid that you've said it 15, 30, 40 times, it means something to them. I'm sorry, go ahead, Laila. I thought I saw a question pop up. I'm not sure if
I don't have any more comments here. Any guys here have some comments in Zoom? The sister here said thank you too.
Mhm.
She said, so if she contacts the imam, that's good. That would be a good third party.
The imam is again, it depends on the imam. I've seen some really bad imams, and I've seen some good imams. But it always depends on who your local imam is and what kind of personality they have. If I don't know if I have any imams on here, how many imams I have on here, but my word of advice for the imams: please just don't say this is haram. We don't do it because Allah said so. Like we get that, right? We all understand that aspect of, it's haram in Islam. It's haram in Islam. Allah says so. And I get it. Trust me, I'm a Muslim. I always say that to the kids. First and foremost, we don't do A, B, and C because Allah said so. But then let's talk about why Allah, these are all the reasons that we came up with after Allah said no. Allah said this is haram, right? And you come up with the reasons. You come up with the different. These are the reasons. The roles. These are why the man roles are this. This is the reason why the woman roles are this. There's certain reasons why in the Quran it is the way it is, right? But like I think I said this in the first or second lecture. If everything was written in the book in the Quran, why Allah says this is haram, the book would be the biggest book ever. And that's why I think the man said like he's got all those books behind him that kind of explains the reasons why things are haram, things are halal. As an imam, your job is to bring the community together and help the community with what they need, right? The needs are very important of a community. And if you go to a masjid that you don't feel comfortable in, right? And I've been there before. I've done that before, where you go into a masjid and you're just, well, this is a little bit too political for me. They're pushing this agenda. I'm not really about that. I'm going to go to this masjid. And then you go to that masjid and you feel really comfortable. You're great. And then everybody at that other message says, hey man, we don't see you anymore. What happened? And then you don't want to really say anything because you don't want to create no tension. So as an imam, your job is to bring all the Muslims together. That's your job, the community together. And we have, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 masjids right around the corner, like, all close by, 20 minutes from each other. One of the things I always was kind of surprised is, why don't we talk to each other? Right? If you are an imam that you can't solve a problem, then you should be able to go to another imam who's 20 minutes away from you and say, brother, I got the situation. I don't think I'm really capable of it. I understand the deen, I understand the religion, but I really, let's say you have a problem with a couple about to get divorced, and you're an imam who's never really been married, who is young, you're still in your 20s or 30s, you're not really married. Go to another imam who's maybe 55, 60 years old, who's been married for 30 years, who knows the deen really well, and who can really help that couple stay together. Know your limitations as an imam, right? And I get it. Like, you're not, nobody's perfect. I never said anybody's perfect, but as an imam, you cannot help somebody, you know, keep their marriage together if you're a divorced imam. And maybe I'm going to get a lot of hate for saying something like that, but I'm sorry, but the people that I'm just talking about, what I've heard people say. How can I go to this imam if he's never been married before? All right, and I tell him, hey, brother Muhammad, he's only 25 years old. How am I supposed to go to him? And he's not even married. He's still a baby. Yeah, but he's knowledgeable. He knows the deen. He knows the religion. He went to Saudi Arabia. Yeah, but he's never been married, brother Muhammad. He's never been married. How can he help me? Right. So as an imam, you say, listen, I can understand where you're coming from. I get it. There's another imam 20 minutes away. He's a good sheikh. He's a good imam. He's very knowledgeable. He's in his 60s. He's married. He's got 5 kids. He's been married for 25 years. This guy can really help you get your marriage together. And be humble about it. It's okay. I don't know everything. If somebody come to me and say, I need eye surgery, hey man, don't come to me. I don't know anything about eye surgery. Let me take you to a doctor that knows how to do that kind of stuff. Right? I don't know everything. I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect. But as a man, you gotta know your limitations, and you gotta try to bring the community together. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, she's asking too, what about seeking non-Muslim professional help, like a counselor or something? Is that recommended, or would it be better to stick with an imam?
That's a tough call. Let me tell you about counselors and therapists, because I do work with a lot of them, non-Muslims, and a lot of times I will get questions from them, asking about, hey, Muhammad, I have a Muslim family that came to me for some help. I've just got a couple of questions about your religion, and they'll ask. A good counselor, a good therapist will ask. So I'm not going to say no, don't go to a non-Muslim counselor, but make sure that you let them understand our religion before you kind of um, talk to them about your situation. Look, first and foremost, I'm a Muslim. Do you know anything about Islam? Not really, but can you educate me as a therapist? When I do my thing and I have somebody coming in from who's a Jehovah Witness or somebody who is Jewish or somebody who is whatever, I would always say, okay, well, what's your take on your religion before we get started, right? And they would kind of go down the line on the religion because everybody has their own take on their religion. So I'd always tell the counselors, the therapists, and the people, when you're going outside of the masjid, really make sure they acknowledge that you're a Muslim and that they understand that where you're coming from, right? Because a lot of times when we go to therapists, as let's say for example, and this happened a couple years back, where a Muslim couple went to family counseling or marriage counseling with a marriage counselor, but when she was not a Muslim, and she worked with them, I think, for 3 months, and she told them, I think the best course of action is to get a divorce. And they came to me. One of the husband came to me and was telling me about the counselor, and we tried the counseling. I'm like, well, what did you guys talk about? How did you guys, well, we went through 3 months. 3 months. That's it, brother. That's 3 months. That's a lot of time. And she just came up with the conclusion that we're not compatible, and we're not. There's no love, and it kind of blew me away. And it's like, well, we hold on, man. We don't just focus on love like we focus on Islam. We focus on the marriage between you and your wife for the sake of Allah. right? And you have to put that paradigm, that triangle. It's you, your wife, and Allah. And once you get that dynamic, you can really solve a problem for marriage, right? If you're following the deen, you're following the deen. There should be no problems in the religion, in the marriage. And so some of the counselors, some of the therapists, they won't understand that. They won't get that unless you really explain to them that part of your life, right? And because if not, they're just gonna go by the book. Sorry, go ahead, sister.
Okay, that's all the comments that I have so far. Is there anyone here in the Zoom room that has a comment or would like to contribute? Okay, here's another. Okay, I'm typing, I'm reading it, brother. Okay, here's a brother from LinkedIn. He said, so if we have problem, oh, his English is bad. If we have problem with loving self, what do to love self?
So he's asking, I guess the question saying, how do we love ourselves? Right. I think that's kind of like the general question that he's trying to ask. And it's hard really to answer that question as an adult if you haven't been really raised in that capacity, I guess you could say. But the brain it's a very funny thing, our brains. We can actually make ourselves feel sick if we start to feel sick, or if we see something, we can make ourselves. Um, I remember, there's a, I forgot what it's called, where you can like you think that you have a rash on your arm, and all of a sudden the rash pops up on your arm. Your brain really plays tricks on you, and I think the power of understanding how to really manipulate yourself to really understand that the way you think is going to make you feel a certain type of way. Right. There's a couple of reasons. I was talking to a doctor who said, a lot of people don't go to doctors because they're afraid of finding out that they got something wrong with it. Because once they find out that they have something wrong with them, that's it. They're going to die. Because that's how the brain works, right? Everything's healthy, everything's good, everything. I'm all right, I'm good, I'm good. But then once a doctor tells somebody they're sick, oh, that's it. Doctor told me I have this, and I'm sick, and I'm going to die. So when we were talking, I started laughing because I think that's. I feel like that sometimes too. Oh, you go to the doctor and say you're overweight. Oh my God, now I feel so heavy now. He said that to me. So you can actually trick your brain into really thinking, changing the ways of your thought process, right? And so you feel tired all the time, or you wake up. I see these people who look on Instagram and they're like, "Oh, I want to be that person that wakes up from their bedroom and wakes up from their bed all glowy and like you have to understand that person's waking up glowy and happy, but that person got out of bed, set the camera up, went back in bed, pressed play, and then came out of the bed again. Like think about that. But there's a way of actually making yourself miserable or making yourself happy by just constant positive thinking. And that's a habit that really takes I want to say about 2 months to really develop, right? It takes about 30 days to break that nasty habit of thinking negative, another 30 days to start thinking positive. And then after that, you just keep doing it, it becomes a routine. After 3 or 4 months, you're going to start to see like that change of mindset really happening, of really caring about yourself and loving yourself. Because you have to remember, as a Muslim, we already have that Muslim love in our like that what's weird. I don't even know how to. I don't know, Layla, help me out here because I don't know how to like really say like the love that we have for our Deen, and the love that the ease that we have with our Deen already gives us an edge on life. And I think that we don't really appreciate how much of an edge we have compared to the rest of the world out there. They're fighting tooth and nail to get drunk, to get wasted, to waste their time, to buy the most expensive things, to keep up with the Kardashians. They're trying to buy the new stuff, and when we're looking at them like, what are you doing, bro? That's all materialistic stuff. And to love yourself is something that you can change just by thinking, right? Slowly but surely, little by little, you start thinking in a more positive way. You start to see, man, it's crazy because I've worked with people for years. I've seen them go and I'm going to say straight up, I've seen some people go from crap to gold. in a year. And you're talking about people who use drugs, people who are just were nasty, smelly, homeless people, to really just changing the thought process of their mindset, right? Because they always thought that way. They always thought that they were bad, or they always hated themselves. Oh, I hate my nose. Oh, my nose is so big. Oh, I had a guy who said I'm too dark. I'm too dark skinned. I'm too black. Brother, you're beautiful. What are you talking about? You're not like everybody else. Why do you want to be like everybody else? Everybody
He's
else is our sheep.
he's saying, oh, he's typing. Well, this is a whole different topic here. He's typed, I hate myself born Muslim from part from Middle East. What's going on in our countries has made me hate what I am. He's from the Middle East, I guess he's saying. And because of what's happening over there politically, it's made him hate who he is.
Yeah, and he's not the only one, sister. Man, I heard people say all the time, why are they doing this to us? Why is everything happening to us? And it's a totally different topic, and I don't want to get on that because it's something that we can do on a whole another day. But it's sad. I mean, look, I'm Middle Eastern. I see what's happening. We all see the videos. Everybody's seen the videos. And it becomes very annoying, very aggravating that, as Muslims, we see what's happening and we kind of feel like we're kind of just stuck, right? And it's sad. It's very, very sad. But you got to remember too, I think Ibrahim said it one time, but there was a hadith that says Islam will be spread around the world, right? And look, this guy said it 1400 years ago. Mashallah, the Prophet said that 1400 years ago that Islam will spread across the world. And look where we're at. We're all over the world. We see one person getting killed over there, and then five other people becoming Muslims the next day. Like it's sad, but it's also, you got to look at the good that's happening within our own deen and our own religion. But we can't really solve what's happening overseas. We really can't do anything other than make dua and pray and ask Allah to help us. But what we can do is we can focus on ourselves, right? And we can really grasp that concept of self-love, take care of ourselves, self-care. I mean, we go through the motions at work, we go through the motions at home, and then we have to think in the back of our head of what's going on overseas. Like we have so much on our plates right now that if you're not taking care of yourself, and if you do have children, they're gonna fall behind. They're gonna be feeling left behind. And I always tell the parents, I get it. We see what's happening, but you really have to understand that our kids right now, our kids are going to be the ones that solves this problem, right? Because we can't do too much about it, but our kids, they might be the ones that really, and that's why I always tell the kids, like, be prideful about Islam, because if you can really just show what Muslims are all about, teach the people that what they saw on TV last week, last year, the last 20 years, 30 years of the TV where they kept pushing Muslims down. Muslims are this and Muslims are that. If you can start to show slowly but surely that the next generation how Muslims are, you're going to start seeing people really ask a lot of questions, really Google, really search, really read up on Islam and start to say, wow, everything I've learned, everything I've heard throughout my life about Muslims are wrong. This is what being a Muslim is all about. I'm sorry. I think we have.
Alhamdulillah, mashallah. This was a very, very good and formative lecture. And by the way, guys, Dr. Jamali did text me. He said that the internet is so bad. I think he's in Jamaica, isn't he?
Oh yeah, he's doing his yeah, he's at the masjid over there.
Yeah, he's in Jamaica, and I think. And he said his internet is so bad that's why he could not join. But mashallah, this was pretty good. The sisters here and the brothers are asking, can you continue this topic?
Yeah, inshallah, I will. If that's what you guys want, I can always come up with. We can always talk about this stuff. I mean, it's a very important topic. I always talk about it with the kids.
The brother. Okay, yeah, okay, I see it. These are, you guys are overseas? Okay, the people on LinkedIn are overseas. So they're asking me, can you continue She's typing in French. I get you now in French. She's typing in French. Can you continue this topic, because of what's happening politically? It's causing them to not like themselves as Muslims. You know what they're trying to say? Can you figure out what they're hitting on?
Yeah, it's a very tough time. I mean, we're going through something that they I think somebody in the news or somebody said it's the #1 documented genocide ever happening around the world, right? It's being documented, it's being videoed, it's being it's just everybody's watching everything right now. And we think it's just us as Muslims because we're the ones, fully being impacted. They're also killing Christians, they're killing black people all over the place. They don't care what you are. They don't care about Muslims, they don't care about any of that kind of stuff. It's all about money, it's all about whatever. But at the end of the day, I always tell the kids here in our society, in our Western society, that we have a responsibility as Muslims, right? And we're not like those people that go knocking on doors like, hey, come be a Muslim. We don't do that. The way we talk about Islam and the way we kind of show Islam is through our actions, right? If you're one of those brothers who is a business brother, and I'm going to be let's be very blunt with some of the people maybe who inshallah know, I'm pretty sure somebody knows somebody like this who's a Muslim brother who does business, and you're a business brother, and you're doing something shady. You're being a shady business dealer. You're being nasty, but you know what? Mashallah, you're making millions of dollars. But the way you're doing your thing is shady, and all the people you've hurt now, and they know your name as Muhammad or Ibrahim or Mustafa or something. Now all those people you've hurt, for you to get to where you're at, in their minds, they think all Muslims are now bad. I will never want to deal with a Muslim people again. Because of one Muslim, you've impacted all those people that you've hurt. So that's why I try to explain to the kids, if you see your parents doing something wrong, if you're doing something wrong, and you're about to go to a public school, because some of our Islamic schools, they stop at like 8th grade, or they stop at like 9th grade, or sometimes they go to 12th grade and they go to college. I always tell them, when you're going to go now in the general public, and some of these people, like yesterday, when the brother who I spoke to, the guy who I spoke to, never met a Muslim before, 40 years old, he never met a Muslim before, until yesterday when he was speaking to me on the sideline. The first time that they're going to meet a Muslim is probably through you. How are you going to be with that person? Are you going to be a shady guy? Are you going to be an honest guy? Are you going to be rude and disrespectful? Or are you going to be a good Muslim and explain to them who you are and what you're all about? Right? And I tell the kids, because the parents, they don't want to hear. The kids will be the ones that go to the parents and say, hey, listen, Brother Muhammad came into our classroom the other day and he was talking about, A, B, and C. And Dad, I see you doing A, B, and C. This is exactly what Brother Muhammad told us not to do. And you're doing exactly the opposite of what Brother Muhammad told us. And do I get in trouble a lot? Yeah, I got parents who yell at me. I do. Do I care? No, I don't care. Because at the day of judgment, they're not going to be there. They're not going to be backing me up. They're not going to be helping me. It's going to be me by myself, butt naked, trying to defend myself on what I did and why I did what I did. And that's all of us has to remember, that we're all going to be by ourselves. And we have to answer the question, right? Why did I gave you this knowledge? I gave you this power. I gave you this money. What did you do with it? And I tell the kids all the time, please, 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 please love yourself and love the fact that you're a Muslim. Because I see the converts, the reverts, and they come and they love Islam. They're proud of themselves. And they come to me and they're, brother, you don't get it. You don't understand, man. I feel light. I feel lighter. I feel like a weight has come off my chest. I don't have to worry about nothing anymore. Allah already told me what to do. I'm done. I'm good. I'm all right. I already have the rules. I'm straight. And as we're us, and we're like, this is, I really want to go out with my friends and drink. What? These reverts are telling you Islam is awesome. And we as Muslims who are born it, raised it, I get what's going on overseas, but we have to be, we're Muslims. Alhamdulillah. Man, I don't know how much to say, but man, I tell the kids, like, man, always, always, I always end my conversations with these kids. We are Muslims. We are what? We're built different. Alhamdulillah. I mean, I'm sorry. I know it's a little bit past the time.
MashaAllah, this was a wonderful topic. And MashaAllah, Brother Muhammad, you did a good job as usual. And
Alhamdulillah.
inshallah, guys, I'll try to put the shorts out. Yeah, I won't wait so late to put the shorts out for this one. And yes, and we'll inshallah continue it for
Inshallah.
next. So I want to thank everybody for joining and participating. And we need to spend the time with our children, and we need to learn our deen as parents. And so we can be better role models for our children. And remember, if
Yes.
you need the help, don't be
Yes.
afraid to ask for outside help. Contact your local mosque and see what services they have available that can help you as a family unit, and all of that. So inshallah, we're going to log off for now. And inshallah, next week, we'll continue this topic with Dr. Ibrahim Daramali. Okay, so subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Assalamu alaikum.
Oh, I'm on the wrong computer to close out. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I'm on the wrong computer. Hold on. We still streaming. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I got to run. Wait a minute.